All right, well, we're going to begin and let everybody else kind of filter in. So as we start anew, this afternoon we wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about perceptions and how we shape perceptions, both with experienced folks within the industry as well as newcomers. And as I get started here, let me take a look at the screen for just a moment. I want to share with you the definition, if you will, of perception. You look in a dictionary and perception is defined, if I can have your attention. Perception is defined as a way of regarding, understanding, or interpreting something. It's a mental impression that we make. And I have a little test for you relative to perception, all right? Take a look at this little graphic here. And it may be difficult to see, but if you'll look, there's a green cylinder, and up to the left of that green cylinder is a box that says A, and down below is a box that says B. Now I want to ask you, as you look at that, how many of you believe that the A box is darker than the B box? Let me see a show of hands. A box is darker than the B box. How many of you say the B box is darker than the A box? Let me see your hands. How many believe that they're the same color? And those people would be right, because when we connect those two boxes, what we find is, believe it or not, those two colors are correct. But psychologists tell us in the optical illusion world that because our mind views this optical illusion as casting a shadow across this, what we find is our eyes play tricks on us. And the point that we want to make is that sometimes we have selective perception. And selective perception is when we see and interpret what we see on the basis of our interest, our background, our experience, and our attitude. And I know that several of you in this room, one of which is just walking in, has written a lot about habituation and how that changes our perception about what is or is not acceptable. We're going to have a conversation about that this afternoon. I love the cartoon. I think it's so appropriate given Lauren's comment about so many of us owning dogs and cats. On the left it says, these people take care of me, feed me, they should be God. And the cat sees the same situation and says, these people take care of me and feed me, I should be God. Says a lot about perceptions and the difference between dogs and cats. Would you agree? Well, there's a consequence that all of us pay, as it relates to public perception. I want to give you 3 short articles to kind of grease the skids this afternoon. Does anybody know who that is? Remember Jamie Oliver? Jamie Oliver had a little television episode where he put ground beef and he put some ammonia and threw it into a dry air clothes dryer, and told people that was how we made what came to be known as pink slime. And that started a snowball rolling down the hill about, well, wait a second, what are you doing with beef and how are you doing it? And it was all based on a technology that Eldon Roth created, where they would take pieces of beef scrap that had both actual beef as well as fat, warm it up, put it in a centrifuge, and separate the fat from the beef, generating anywhere from 8 to 12 pounds of saleable red beef that you could put into hamburger on a per carcass basis. And of course, some of you remember the time that then ABC News picked up on it, New York Times picked up on it. They coined the term pink slime. And the result was a significant decrease. I will just give you a couple of quick facts that fed steer prices dropped 7%, ground beef prices skyrocketed 26%, and Eldon Roth closed 2 of his 3 BPI facilities as a process. The point I'm making of that is there was very little threads of truth in what Jamie Oliver displayed, all right? But through social media and his following, it became a groundswell, and pretty soon stores were kicking out any ground beef that had lean, finely textured beef in it and everything else. Here's another one. Do you recognize this picture? Who's that? Cecil the Lion, isn't it? And many of you know that Walter Palmer went to Zimbabwe, shot this lion, and what did people want to do with Walter Palmer? They wanted to shoot him. I mean, he closed his dental office for a couple of weeks. He was in hiding. And ultimately, Zimbabwe officials came out and said, He had the appropriate visa to come in as a hunter. He did nothing wrong. Maybe some of the guides did something wrong, but he is not at fault for shooting Cecil the lion. But again, if you recall what happened, how that went virally on social media, that guy's life was in danger. And another great one is for a Denver Bronco fan like me is this one. Cheaties, right? You see the Deflategate scandal that Tom Brady went through, and as I heard just about a week ago, I think he has a bigger issue now. It's less about the deflated balls and more about the fact that he destroyed his cell phone that might end up getting him into trouble yet. So here's the point I'm trying to make. Guys, lots of industries have been impacted with public perception. Would you agree? And our industry is no stranger to this, and we're going to talk this afternoon about how we manage that. So a couple of questions before our first presenter comes up. First question is this. Have you seen an article in the news or a post on social media about horses in the last 6 months that could be perceived as negative to the horse industry? Have you personally seen an article in the news or a post on social media that could be perceived as negative to the horse industry? You personally. Yes or no? Making these answers simpler as we go on, aren't we, Dr. Blodgett? We're missing a few people, so let's see here. 160, 150? I'm going to close it. 83% said yes. A number of you have said, hey, there has been something that I've seen on regular media, social media that could be negative. And let me ask you the opposite question. Have you seen an article in the news or a post on social media in the past 6 months that could intrigue and interest a non-horse enthusiast, that could take one of these people and say, hey, where could I go for a riding experience, or how might I engage with somebody that knows something about horses? Couple of more entries and we're going to close it down. 76% said yes. So the fact of the matter is it's actually good news, right? I mean, the fact is we all have in our hands tools that can be used for good or harm, and I think that's what we're going to hear about a little bit this afternoon. To kick us off on that discussion, we have a person who has a lifelong passion for horses. She's a lifelong horsewoman and communication professional who began her professional career in equine journalism at the Quarter Horse Journal. She went on to work for the Western Horsemen and a global promotional retail and marketing agency before coming back to the horse industry and in her current role as editor of Horse and Rider magazine. She served a 3-year term as a board member for the American Horse Publications and has a deep passion for promoting horse activities, particularly to newcomers. Today, she comes to provide her perspective on communications and the impact both social and traditional media have had on people's perception of the American quarter horse and, frankly, the horse industry in general. Would you please join me in welcoming to the stage Jennifer Paulson.
In today's overconnected world, people are always talking. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. But no matter what, there's always something to say and someone who will listen. Whether or not we want to accept it, perception is reality. How can you affect what people think about the American quarter horse industry? How do the choices you make affect the opinions of others? Do you represent what you want to see in the industry?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about something that is really important for our industry. It's been kind of a long day, so if I could have everybody stand up for just a second, I'm going to ask you a few questions and we'll kind of figure out where everybody stands with this. If you have ever untagged yourself in a photo on social media because you thought it was unflattering, maybe you had too many chins, maybe it put you in a place where you weren't supposed to be, sit down. If you've ever hidden aspects of your social media history, maybe you're looking for a job or starting online dating or for some other reason, please sit down. And if you have ever pored over photos of a stallion for a breeding ad, or if you're a trainer gone over photos endless times with your non-pro or youth competitors, or the trainer as well, to present a horse before a horse show, have a seat. Okay, so it seems like everybody in here, a lot of you, have had a situation where you have realized that a single image has incredible power over the perceptions and observations that people have of you, whether they're correct or not. For 55 years, Horse and Rider magazine has been in the business of trying to put forward the best perception of the horse industry that we can. And as I know from working with the Quarter Horse Journal, the AQHA publications do that as well. We editors carefully select trainers to work with, those who have exceptional backgrounds and experience and reputations, and they have innovative ideas. We mindfully choose photos to ensure that headsets aren't offensive in photos, that tack is used correctly, and that horse and rider are never in an unsafe position. And throughout the entire process, we carefully consider two important pillars of media, whether it's print or social media, and those are background and context. But then enter the social media revolution. It's great for promotion, connection, and fun. We have access to anyone, anytime, anywhere, and it's opened a whole new audience to horses and brought the existing horse community together, no matter how many miles might separate us on a map. But with those gains, we've lost background and context, the two essential pillars of perception, especially in an activity that's widely segmented by interest, experience level, and background. With the tap of a button, a non-horse person, or even a rider who doesn't understand what's being presented, can share and pass judgment on the visual image without any background in the who, what, where, when, why, or context of the situation. I'll bet many of you can think of instances when you found yourself or your friends or colleagues in that position, and it's not a very comfortable place to be. One example happened this past December at the National Reining Horse Association Futurity in Oklahoma City. A widely followed page posted a screenshot taken during a finals run of the webcast. They weren't even there. They just Command 4 took a screenshot. The rider, who has a stellar reputation and a successful record as a competitor, his horse laid down after the completion of her first sliding stop and backup. So this image shows up, and the well-meaning blogger presented it, taken in that moment with the horse on the ground, with a caption that said something like, "Oh, I just want to hug that horse." And while she meant well, it echoed what we were feeling in the Jim Norick Arena that night, that how terrible for this to happen to this rider and this horse, because, you know, it's just one of those things that happens, and we in the horse industry know that. The horse was fine. She led right out of the arena without a struggle. She was licking her lips. But in the moment of sharing that screenshot, without discussing the rider's background or his reputation, it spread like wildfire. They had no idea that the horse had gotten up and that she was safe, and she walked quietly out of the arena. They had no idea that Casey patted her on the neck and showed her compassion and handled it like a true champion that he is. Instead, they began questioning his motives, what he did to the horse. They tore him down faster than the blogger could get an interview to relay his perspective. It all could have been mitigated by providing background and context in the first place, or maybe avoiding posting such a photo in the first place, because there was just too high risk for misconception. Whether professional or personal, we all make mistakes when it comes to social media. I know I have personally as well as professionally. And when we do make those mistakes, we do our best to clean up after ourselves, but the fact is the evidence never really goes away. We can write a correction in print, we can delete those social posts, but we've already made an impression on the viewer's mind that they don't forget. It doesn't go away just because we took it down. We can avoid these situations by being mindful about what we post and share. And if we do share something, providing background and context to reduce the chance of misconception. As members of AQHA, exhibitors and breeders of quarter horses, and lovers of the breed, each and every one of you has an influence over how this breed is perceived by other horse lovers, potential horse owners, and even those who don't know one end of a horse from the other. That's why I'm here to challenge you with a few things to keep a positive perception on the quarter horse, as well as horses around the world and the horse industry. Number one, make yourself available. If you're a breeder or a trainer, Use your business pages and websites to share your expertise. Be a provider of background and context. If you're up for an adventure, plan a Facebook forum. Answer questions in real time. Give good information. If that's not your style, find a way to share your techniques and philosophies via blog posts, articles in magazines like Horse and Rider and the Journal, and then share those pieces socially as well as on your websites, everywhere that you can to get that good information out. Al is a great example of this. Al Dunning, who's on our panel today, he is very active on social media, provides great information, and it's stuff that people can really learn from, and it puts the horse and the trainer and the rider all in a really positive context. Number 2, keep your social media posts positive. Post and share things that lift up the industry and can help make it better. Congratulate fellow competitors publicly on social media. By doing that, by praising what they've done publicly, it's a catalyst for positive change and positive perception. Who doesn't like seeing great pattern written on their Facebook wall the next day after a horse show, or seeing, wow, that baby that you posted yesterday on Facebook is really gorgeous. If you see something negative or downright illegal or against the mission of AQHA, report it. Don't share it. There's no sense in passing around bad information and bad practices. Number 3, welcome newcomers. And this is what Patty and Kim have talked about. We can't be equine elitists. We can't be equine snobs anymore. We need to grow our numbers. And if we treat new horse owners poorly, we won't have much of an industry for our kids and grandkids to grow up in. Now, I'm not saying that we have to coddle every single newcomer who maybe joins an online forum that's over their heads, but push them in the direction of positive information. Send them to Horse and Rider. Send them to AQHA. Give them really reliable materials from which to educate themselves. Belittling them only makes you and the rest of the industry look petty, snobby, and downright mean, which doesn't make for a good perception. And finally, share with care. If you don't know the 2 pillars that I mentioned earlier, context and background, then don't pass along the information. Minimizing negativity and the spread of unconfirmed information keeps the horse world moving in a positive direction with a favorable perception among horsemen and women, as well as those outside of our industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Wow, some great comments and great advice for all of us, not just folks in the horse industry. We're going to move next to a gentleman that really needs no introduction among the horse industry. And in fact, you all know that he's been doing this since he was 8 years old and started riding horses. And today he's currently past chairman of the show committee, current chairman of the judges committee. I'm going to dispense with a long introduction and just say, ladies and gentlemen, somebody you all know, Al Dunning.
That was better. This makes me really tall up here, doesn't it? Huh? It's easy to be taller than Jen anyway, so. You know, I'm honored to be able to be here today to talk a little bit about the role of owners and trainers when it comes to horse welfare. You know, it's been amazing that we're all here together, and this room should be packed. There shouldn't be an empty seat in this, because we should all be unified in the preservation of our horse and what's good for our horse. Because I can tell you this, without the American Quarter Horse Association and that horse, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be a success in what I do. I wouldn't have good horses, because I've ridden a lot of other kinds, and quarter horse is the only kind that does the things that I want it to do consistently. So I give them all the credit. You know, one of the things I know for a fact is that I've trained horses for over 40 years, and the only way I've been able to be a success is be able to bend with what's going on out here in the business. I've tried to adjust, and I've tried to learn as I've gone. Our environment has changed today. You know, I think we're seeing more people living in populated areas and less people living in the rural part. The people that come to see me at the ranch, you know, they come, they just want a little piece of that dirt, a little piece of that action out there, and it's different than what we see. So, and we're definitely more visible to the public. You know, when I was a kid and going to the shows, you know, you could drive in there and it was just us and the judge and a few people running the show, and that was about the size of it. But today, I think the venues are so much bigger, and we seem to go to those kind of shows where there's a lot of action going on, a lot of people showing up and things like that. So we have to be a little different. You know, I never thought, I had that first cell phone, and it was a box about this big, and it had a big phone in it, and that phone had to be about that big. And nowadays, everybody seems to have a phone in their pocket, and those phones take pictures and they take videos, and there's social media and all this other stuff that's out there today that we got to think about. Facebook is a wonderful tool, but you see it and you wonder how do those people ever have the time to put all that stuff on there, and because there's all kinds of criticism and stuff like that goes on that is just amazing to me, instead of all the positive things that really should be on there. So here's a couple of things. I've watched, and some problems that I have about lately is that, which most know I have a lot of problems. So is that I see things like that Congress Western Pleasure Horse on class on social media, and all the comments that go on there, and Casey Deary's horse laying down, all the negative comments on there, people that don't understand. So that'll just tell you how we got to be careful with everything that we do and everything that we say. And my suggestion is, don't get involved in those kind of social fights and stuff like that. Post positive things, post things that can lift people up, make people happy, make them learn to love the horse and what they're doing. So if I had a suggestion for you guys that are training horses out there, I'd say make sure your horses are prepared when you go to the show. For us to look good and to make this association hold it up to where it should be, I think it's our responsibility as professional trainers to make sure our horses are physically and mentally prepared when we go to the show. So you don't have to train your horse at the show. You have to warm them up or tune them up a little bit and go show. I think where people get into trouble at the horse shows is they take horses to the horse shows that shouldn't go to the horse show in the first place. They're not prepared to go mentally and physically. Okay? And so then I think they start, training is made something to do at home, not at a show. Showing's to show. Another thing is, I see trainers that get so focused at what they're doing, they forget about what it looks like to others. I call it focus or finesse. Take your choice. But it's really hard. To be focused on being good is one thing, but to be so focused you forget that there's people out there watching. The eyes are watching. That makes a big difference. We've worked on things in the AQHA and the other associations I've been involved in about acceptable standard of practices of trainings, acceptable practices, things, but they're changing. When I started, pretty much every horse trainer had a bat in their back pocket or a bat in their saddle, and they tapped their horses on the head a lot. And today, if you did that at the horse show, and I mean, we just talked about Clyde Kennedy and some of the great guys in the Hall of Fame committee. There wasn't one of those guys that didn't do that. And that was an acceptable training practice in those days. Is it acceptable today? No, it's not. It's not acceptable because we've seen abuse of that and such like that. And it kind of seems to keep going on and on, from simple things like draw reins and lunging horses and things like that. So, and it's it's our responsibility as professionals to make sure that we don't continue to misuse good things that work on training horses humanely. The definition of professionalism is very important. The skill, good judgment, and polite behavior that is expected from a person that is trained to do a job well. You got that? That's what I have a little problem. I don't see that all the time. And I'm not just saying it's the young guys, but it's the old guys too. Because, to be a professional, you got to have skill. You got to be well learned. And good judgment is one of the hardest things I see out there, to make sure your judgment's correct all the time. And you think, should I do this or shouldn't I? It's like having that good guy and the bad guy on your shoulders. You can't let that bad guy win. That good guy's got to take charge, and he's got to kind of keep in your head about where you're at and what you're doing. You know, Don Dodge had a big influence on us and about a lot of things. And a lot of the people here know who Don Dodge was. And he spoke to the convention several times. And he talked about wearing a uniform, you know, wearing a cowboy hat, wearing a necktie, or having a nice clean starched shirt, clean boots, and looking like the part. You know, I go to those shows today and I see the guys riding around with no hat or a ball cap and a t-shirt. And it just really hurts me that they have that little respect for our association in the shows. That how they look has a lot to do with public perception about our association and what we're doing. I mean, this is a cowboy event or an English event or whatever it is, look the part. You know, part of this is about your character and your integrity. You know, I can't always see what's inside here, but I can see how you act and how you look. It makes a big difference, okay? And if you're going to develop that kind of longevity in our business and be that kind of success, you better have the inward and the outward appearance both. Both sides of you better be right. And that ethics, never let that ever slip away from you. Never let that be an ethical and doing the right thing over and over. And that's the only way you're going to gain the respect. And another thing is that bothers me too is that everything we do has to do with respect for this association. So if you do something to your horse out there that's wrong, you're not only disrespecting the horse, the owner, making a fool of yourself, but you're disrespecting the AQHA. You know, you got to have an attitude of gratitude. I like that one. If you're not happy with doing this, please go do something else. Go do something else, because this is a wonderful thing. This is a great lifestyle, guys. This is a great lifestyle. My beautiful wife, Becky, we've been married for 44 years, and she's been by my side during this whole thing, you know. And yeah, give her the glory. She's back there in the back somewhere, hiding probably. So, but what's so cool about that is we've done all the events. Every event. We've cut, we've roped, we've done the pleasure, the trail, we've done it all. And you know, it's important that you have gratitude for that horse and what it's done for you. So I'm not going to get mushy over it all, but I can tell you this, when Expensive Hobby died, I laid down next to his grave and cried. Your face and your overall appearance shows your mindset. How you look. If you're out there riding your horse and you got that look like you'd like to kill him, well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to stay away from you. If you'd smile and enjoy what you're doing out there, it changes the whole aspect of what people are going to look, of what you're showing outside, what's going on inside. I think that's important. Don't let your ego cause you to make a mistake. You know, we've all shown, I heard something one time said, the only guy that's never been beat is the guy that never showed. Because I've been beat a lot showing. And I've won a lot showing. But what we got to be careful of is that our egos don't take charge of us and say, that horse made me look bad, so I'm going to go kick his butt. Where the public can see it, or where anything going. But you better start thinking about what's going on inside you and what you did at home. I think that's the most important part. It's not always the horse's fault. Sometimes we have to have realistic expectations of our horse. You know, like the Army says, be all you can be. Some horses only can be a lower level horse, a level 1 horse. And you can't make that horse by riding him harder and treating him tougher, make him a level 3 horse. You can't do it. You got to have some sense about you when you do it. You know, monkey see, monkey do. Remember that when you were a kid? You know, monkey see, monkey do means that I see a guy out there riding and he just won that last class and he's got a big bit on his horse and he's doing things to him that I haven't seen done before. And I think, well, the only way I can win is go do what he does. Well, the truth is, I've trained a lot of great trainers. One of them sitting right there in the second row, Pete Kyle. And he isn't just like me. He'll never be just like me, but he got some things from me. And so did all the other guys that worked for me. but you got to be an individual. If you think there's a cookie cutter stamp on how to be a great horse trainer, you're wrong. But it's what's inside you, how you feel and how you think, and the reactions you have and the love and care you have for a horse that makes the real difference in how you are as a horse trainer. So just watching somebody and changing and doing everything like they're doing because you had one bad show is not a very smart thing to do. You know, I got to say this. In the Bible it says, let he who is free of sin cast the first stone. You know, I'm just as guilty as everybody else out here. You know, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done dumb things and stuff, and I hope that you all have forgiven me, and I'm glad my horses do. But I can tell you this. Don't criticize everybody. There's a lot of people out there. Horse training is not an easy subject, okay? It's not, you can't make a lot of money at it. It's tough. You better do it for something more than that. But it's easy to criticize. And to put criticisms of somebody on Facebook and open social media such like that is just dead wrong. You know, we have to learn to monitor ourselves, and we have to learn to monitor others for this to be a successful business ongoing. I can tell you a quick story. It's interesting. I was working my cutting horse out beside the cutting pen right before I went into the AQHA World Finals. And I did well, but I didn't have a great horse, and I did as good as I could. And I got done, and I went upstairs, and I saw Alex Ross, my dear friend. And Alex said to me, he said, Al, he said, I don't remember you being that rough before. And I thought, rough? What's he talking about? I said, so what are you talking about? He says, well, right before you went, you ran that course, and you were kind of rough with your hands. And he said, I don't remember you like that. I remembered you a lot softer, a lot more, you know, like caring about what you were doing with the horse. And I thought, crud, did I do that? You know? But I was so appreciative of him saying something as my friend, that I wasn't displaying the kind of horsemanship that I talk about and that I want you to think of me for. So I was so appreciative of that, and I've changed. I've made it better. And I can tell you this, when I see somebody making a mistake out there, I'm going to go tell them. If they don't like me because of it, I don't want them as my friend anyway. But if they wreck my association and the horse and your perception, things like that, because they're messing up out there and I didn't say anything, it's just my fault as it is theirs. And I see that a lot today out here, and I don't like it. And I've probably been guilty of it too, but I was real proud at the Sun Circuit Quarter Horse Show not too long ago. Gretchen Mathis was judging, and I wasn't going to say this, but she was judging. Somebody was in the back pen, and they were spinning and spinning and spinning, and she said, stop the show. Go over there and have somebody stop them. Didn't you, Gretchen, huh? Stop them. And I was so proud of her for that. TSA Security says, see something, say something. So I'm saying to you, if you see something out there that's detrimental to our industry, our horse, our association, say something. You're just as guilty of them as them if you don't. Winning is important, but how you win is how you'll be remembered. You got to stay all in. You got to be all in all possible parts of this horse association, no buts about it. As a trainer, you have certain responsibilities. You got to treat your customers right. You got to treat your horses right. You got to make sure you do things other than that. It can't just be about you training and going to the horses. You got to be open to volunteer, do the right thing, share your values, build the industry like Patty's trying to do for us all. You know, my wife, she tells me all kinds of cool stuff. One of the things she said is, Al, before you do something stupid, play the tape all the way through. Play the tape all the way through. Remember that. That's one of the good things she told me. Play the tape all the way through. Not just think about what it's going to be right now. I'm going to fix that daggum horse. But think about what those people are thinking that are watching. Think about what it's going to do to my career later on. Think about the whole thing. Think about the end. You know, they say it's not the teeth of the dog, it's the tail of the dog that'll bite you. Okay? I like those kind of things. And as you owners, there's more horse owners here than there are horse trainers. But the horse owners, make sure you're doing the right thing by your horse. Don't push that horse. You know, there's so few great older horses now. There's so many young horses that are so good. They're getting pushed, and we don't see those great old horses. We got to be careful about that. Don't push that trainer. But if the trainer pushes your horse, say something. You own the daggum horse. Okay? I think that's important. And if he doesn't like it, find another horse trainer. And for you horse trainers, communicate with your owners. Talk to them. Tell them what you believe in. Stick with your guns. Stick with your values. You know, a guy named S. Schopenhauer, I want to say that name, and I hope that's right. He wrote a saying that says, compassion for animals is intimately connected with goodness of character, and it may be confidently asserted that he who is cruel to animals cannot be a good man. Got that? You know, horses on a motorcycle, you can't just jerk them and jack them around and lay them down. Horses have feelings. They're smart if you give them a chance. They need to be nurtured like children with patience, understanding, and compassion. Thank you.
In the presence of greatness indeed. Thank you so much, Al. Next speaker was born just a little ways east of here, Salt Lake City, Utah, and went on to spend most of his childhood in Elko, Nevada. He founded Marty Simper Show Horses and was voted AQHA's most valuable professional, presented by the Utah Quarter Horse Association a number of times. He's currently AQHA Professional Horseman. He's National Director for AQHA and current President of the Utah Quarter Horse Association. Here to present his perspective on how our attitudes and actions and behaviors can impact not only horses but newcomers to our industry. Would you please welcome Marty Simper.
Boy, it's a great honor to be here today. Just because I grew up in Nevada, I mean, you get speaking the state that you grew up in. When I got asked to talk, they called me on the phone and they asked, I got to start learning how to say no, but I didn't. So I told them, they said, what do you get, they gave me the topic, what I was going to talk about, and they told me that they said, what are you going to talk about later on? I said, well, I'm going to get up, I'm going to tell a few jokes, kind of just go on a little bit. And Kevin, he kept calling and he said, you got a PowerPoint put together? You guys all seen these coloring books, these adult coloring books? They didn't have an adult PowerPoint by number, so I don't have a PowerPoint. And then I thought about a joke, and, I kept thinking about it. I worked for Clark Parker. So I called Clark Parker, and I asked him, I said, hey, Clark, you got any really good jokes? So Clark, he gives me this joke, and I said, Clark, that is a really good joke, but I don't think I can tell it at convention. So then while I've been sitting down here, I've been talking to Al, and I asked Al, I said, Al, do you got any good jokes? And Al says, yeah, I got a good joke. Needless to say, I have 2 jokes that I can't tell to you guys today. So I guess I'll just get on with my talk. So the first part, I've taken a questionnaire from my a question from my Team Wrangler questionnaire. What was your first exposure to, or your most memorable experience with American quarter horses? Was your perception of that experience, was it good or was it bad? Obviously it was all good because we keep coming back. As I look back at my childhood growing up, I had a great experience with horses growing up. My dad rodeoed, we showed horses, and I grew up in a ranching community in Elko, Nevada. So I was always around horses, and I loved being around horses. My dad always told me that there was only one type of horse to own, and that was a quarter horse. And to this day, my dad has still never owned any other type of a horse. Good experiences are what I would like to see every AQHA member for them and their horse. I've been asked to talk about newcomers' perception or exposure of the horse industry. What is the definition of perception? We've seen some ideas a little bit ago, but there's some more. It is the way we think about someone or something. It is the ability to understand or to notice something else. It is the ability to understand or notice something else easily. It is the way you notice or understand using one of your senses. It is the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something. It can be perceived as recognition, awareness, consciousness, appreciation, realization, knowledge, understanding, comprehension, and apprehension. As you have heard, perception can come across in many ways, good and bad. I feel that the majority of the newcomers that come to our events leave with a positive and gratifying experience. But unfortunately, there are some that leave with the wrong perception. I have spoken with several individuals that were not too long ago categorized as newcomers. I have highlighted some of the ideas that were concerning for them, and some of the ideas were judges. Many newcomers are intimidated by the judges, or they don't understand how placings are calculated, and they become upset when they lose. I have a youth client who has been with me for several years now. I first met her and her grandmother at an open show that I had judged. Her grandma was quite upset with me over her granddaughter's placings and didn't hesitate a minute to tell me what she thought about my judging. I was very polite and respectful, but I took the time to explain why her granddaughter had placed the way she did. She asked me where she could find that information, and I referred her to the AQHA handbook. And everybody has the rule book with them. It's on your phones now. We talk about technology. If you don't have it, download that app. I also gave her some advice on what she could do to contact some of her horses' problems. This family appreciated the information, and it turned a negative experience into something positive, and a great friendship was formed. We can also be open to exhibitors and answer questions they might have. Show clothes and tack. New exhibitors are sometimes intimidated by show clothes, saddles, tack, and so on. All the bling and silver is very pretty and exciting, but we need to let people know that it is not required to win. Usually when we go to a show, if it's a smaller show, I always try to show in one of my little bit nicer work saddles. So a few weeks ago we were at this show, and we were riding around. We were warming up for the pleasure class, and we were riding around, and I asked one of my clients, I said, "Hey, I need a favor. Can I have you run back to the stalls and grab my chaps?" She said, "I'd be more than happy to run back to the stalls and grab my chaps." She's sitting in the audience. She's shaking her head. That's why I'm laughing. So she runs back to the stalls to go grab my chaps. They kick us out of the pen. They go to drag the pen. And they come in with the tractor, and they're going around and around with the tractor. Well, she's nowhere to be found. So I get off my horse, and I thought, well, I'll just run up to the stalls, see if I can find her or my chaps, and come back. So I ran up to the stalls. I couldn't find either one of them. I come back, jumped on my horse, and there was a newcomer sitting there at that time. And she said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go show my horse." And she said, "Well, you can't go show without your chaps." And I said, "What do you mean I can't go show without my chaps?" She said, "That's part of your uniform to go out there and show." And I said to her, I said, I hope that the judges in the pleasure class are judging my horse on its correctness instead of how I was dressed. So needless to say, we went out in the pleasure class. I won the class, come back out, and that lady, that newcomer that was sitting there, she said how much that had helped her confidence, because it had showed her that she didn't actually need all that bling for the judges to notice her. We need to keep getting some source of information out to new competitors so they know what they can and can't do, so that they feel comfortable in the show ring. Exhibitors. Often there is a feeling that certain certain horses cannot compete against certain people. Some people feel intimidated because they don't have a trainer and they don't feel qualified on their own. Trainers are a great asset, but are not a requirement to compete or win. So being from Utah, we had at our year-end convention, there was a gal that had traveled all the way from Colorado last year. She came to every one of our shows. She was a level 1 rider. She'd never showed before. She came to all of our shows. Everybody was very polite to her. She was very polite. She asked questions from all the trainers, and the trainers were there to help her. After she'd showed all year and the points were tabulated, we had a tie for the novice amateur. So we decided what was the best way to handle this. So we decided that it was for the two people that tied, the best way to handle it was to break it down the middle and let them share the title. So this lady that she didn't have a trainer, she just came over, she wasn't experienced. That helped her confidence so much, and she took it back, and she'll tell her friends for the rest of her life how much growth she had got out of that and how much fun she had had. But had she come to the shows and nobody was polite to her or anything, she would have never came back. Class schedules. Some newcomers felt that the order of the classes gave some exhibitors an advantage. How can we fix these issues? I would have to say at the top of the list would be how we treat people, whether they be new members, current members, or past members. I have a favorite saying: people will forget what you say, people will forget what you say, people will forget what you win, but people will never forget how you made them feel. We should have positive attitudes around all exhibitors, spectators, and our horses. Be proactive about fixing situations. Be someone's hero. Be a great role model. Display good sportsmanship and act as a mentor for the horse industry. Take the opportunity to help someone who is uncomfortable or struggling and answer questions. Education is key. We can make people aware of educational resources, clinics, websites, lists of trainers, and AQHA professional horsemen. I also know that members within the industry are willing to offer information and advice if they are aware that someone is in need. Social media has also made a big impact on relaying educational information, but unfortunately, it can also be a source to spread negativity. People can be hurt by social media, and that is disturbing. People only listen to half the story, sometimes forming the wrong perception. Bad news spreads like wildfire, while good news travels slowly. The positive side is it can bring information to those who have not seen it before. It relates success stories of how people's lives have changed because of the horse. Such examples as the wounded warriors, equine therapy, etc. It offers information on proper care of the horse, health questions, animal welfare, brand inspections, travel papers, biosecurity at shows, show schedules. There is an endless information and advice, and it's only a click away. As members, trainers, and professional horsemen, we have a code of ethics we are supposed to follow. I went to the AQHA Professional Horseman website and would like to quote from the AQHA Professional Horseman Code of Ethics. We are the members of the AQHA. We are the members of the American Quarter Horse Association of Professional Horsemen. In carrying out our role of providing service to the American quarter horse industry, recognize the need to do so in a professional manner, and to deal with the public, our colleagues, with the highest degree of integrity. Therefore, we have set forth the following creed, which shall govern our endeavors to fulfill our obligations: to adhere to the professional standards of the American Quarter Horse Association and to work to further its goals and objectives, to ensure the welfare of the American Quarter Horse Association is paramount, and that every American quarter horse, or any horse, shall be at all times treated humanely, and with dignity, respect, and compassion. to conduct all business affairs with integrity, sincerity, and accuracy, in an open and forthright manner, to act with integrity in financial dealings with clients and other professionals and the public, to fully disclose to customers the actual sale price and commission involved in the sale of a horse, to not charge or receive a monetary commission or other remuneration constituting a commission from both the buyer and the seller of the horse, to handle our business and operations in a manner which promotes the image of the American quarter horse industry, to install confidence among the public in the American quarter horse industry, avoiding the action conducive to discrediting it or membership in the American quarter horse industry. Quote, AQHA members share a passion for the American quarter horse and the vast lifestyle created by the world's most popular horse. Whether you're a seasoned show veteran, a fan of the racetrack, a backyard horse enthusiast, or simply someone dreaming of someday owning a horse, AQHA membership will benefit you in countless ways. I believe that in some ways we are all classified as newcomers. Every time we go to a horse show, there will be new people, new locations, new rules, new show office rules, or perhaps members who haven't competed for a while and feel out of the groove. I want everyone to feel welcome, and sometimes it just takes a simple hello or a smile. We can act as role models. Remember when there were a lot of good westerns? And as kids, we watched everyone riding horses, and all we wanted was to have a horse so we could run and ride like they did in the movies. Remember how exciting that might have made you feel? We all have the same goal, our passion for the American quarter horse and its success. We want to ensure continued success in our organization, and it's through our members. I have always made myself available to help and assist whenever needed at state and national levels. I consider it an honor and a privilege to be part of the AQHA, and will never hesitate to promote our association and our horse industry. Thank you.
Well, Marty doesn't represent the average demographic we talked about earlier, and he's certainly not average in terms of his skill. The association is in good hands with folks like that. Our final presenter of today is going to be a gentleman that, again, needs no introduction. He started at age 14 galloping racehorses for a local trainer to help fund a rodeo career, and thank goodness he ended up investing his talents in the racehorse industry. He's won the All-American Futurity twice, has been named the American Quarter Horse Association World Champion Jockey 10 times, and on June 1st he became the all-time leading money-earning jockey, the American Quarter Horse. Would you put your hands together for AQHA professional horseman and a member of Team Wrangler, G.R. Carter.
Welcome everybody, and I don't know how many racing people we have here, but I've learned a lot about the show industry today, and and I hope a few of y'all can relate to the racing industry too, which I'm sure you can. The racing industry is a lot different than the show horse industry in the way that the biggest part of the fan base is a gambler, and those gamblers, boy, they can be tough. They're pretty fickle. You're a hero one race, and you get one beat the next race, and boy, you get hecklers on. I've had hecklers on the rail, and you name it. It just takes to get one beat that they got a $2 bet on, and your name's mud. You went from hero to chump now. Well, that's when I meet a lot of people, that's one thing they'll tell me. They'll realize who I am, and they'll say, "Boy, I've won a lot of money on you." And I say, "Yeah, you've lost a lot too." And they'll all start laughing. They say, "Yeah, you're right. I've bet on horses with you were in a slump. I didn't think I didn't know when you were going to win another race." Well, the perception of the average person of horse racing, like the average person that you meet on a plane or something like that is, well, there's a lot of cheating that goes on in that game. And I have to tell them, no, there's really not. And the reason why they think that is because when there is one bad incident, that's what's reported. People like to report about bad things, like some of these other panels have said, and we have to really guard those bad incidents and try and keep them to a minimum, because you let the average person hear and read about that on social media, and and it keeps them from going to the races. Horse racing is a great sport. There's nobody in the world that's been better to than me. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I've got to ride a lot of great horses, and who gets that thrill of winning day to day, competing and winning on a regular basis daily and get paid for it? I rode probably, in my 30-year career, probably rode average of about 30 races, or about 1,000 races a year for 30 years. I rode over right at 24,000 quarter horse races, and I feel like I was, like I say, the luckiest guy in the world to be able to win those races and see the joy in those owners and trainers when you come back, and the joy they get in winning those races, especially those big ones. Well, like I said, the racing industry is it's a big money industry. There's it's all about the money, and the more money involved, it seems like the more inclination for those trainers and jockeys to maybe cheat. But I will say that I'm probably more proud of the fact that like I said, I rode 24,000 quarter horse races and probably another 6 of other breeds total, and I never went out there that I didn't ride to win. And whether it was a cheap race or a big race, and I'm real proud of that. I might have saw or heard of incidents like everyone else has where guys are trying to bet on horses to maybe fix a race off at a small track here and there, but it seems like every time it went south on them. They didn't really realize the damaging repercussions they were doing to the sport and the way they were making a living, and all those things they're not good for the perception. One thing that I am known for that probably even the majority of the casual racing knowledge person here knows, that I was a show-off for my whole entire career. Whenever I obviously had a gymnastics background, and whenever I'd win a big race, I would do a backflip dismount off the horse. That that all came about kind of as an accident. As a kid growing up, I was in gymnastics, and I did backflips off the side of a rope horse, and one of my rodeo buddies was working at the racetrack in Blue Ribbon Downs. I remember the first time I did it was at the Shibester Fraternity in 1988. I guess I would have been 20 years old. And it was a real tight photo finish. And the guy, this groom, he told me, he says, we win this photo, you got to do a backflip off this mare. And I even remember the mare's name is Navy Blues. And I'm like, man, I don't even know my foot will come out of the stirrup. And he said, no, you got to do it. We win this $100,000 race. And I'm like, sure, why not? I didn't really think I'd won the race. It was that close. They hung the photo finish up, and I was just as excited as he was. And he's like, he just stopped that mare, and I did a backflip off the side of her and on it. It was pretty exciting. It became a tradition to when I win a big race, and I really felt, I did so many over the years where I felt like I was a show off, and I remember times that I wouldn't do it in some of the smaller races, and I could hear kids that were be on the rail, and they were like, oh, he didn't do a backflip. It just killed them. And all this goes back to, and then later in the latter part of my career, I actually had people would tell me, how much that they felt like, and how much they appreciated the fact that I drawed exposure to the sport of quarter horse racing, and I really became to where I looked at it upon as a lot different than being a show off. It's like, I was doing a good thing for the sport, drawing exposure to it. And, who knows what kind of exposure I might have got if I'd come along later, to where here at the with social media and things like that, like we got now. But when I started my career in 1984 at Blue Ribbon Downs, there wasn't no social media. But that social media, I will say that I'm not a Facebooker. I didn't feel the need to give every owner that I just got their horse outrun access to me on Facebook. So I have never been I've just never have been on Facebook. But I will say that the social media used in the right way, it can be such a great thing. And there is one thing that's coming in horse racing that I know about with my involvement in the Jocks Guild is there's a new form of gambling that's going to just starting to take a hold in the United States. They've actually passed it in California, but it's been put on hold, and it's been passed in New Jersey. And Betfair TVG is just fixing to start implementing, and I believe all New Jersey residents can actually bet on races across the country. And that form of gambling is different in any current form. It's called exchange wagering, and you can actually bet just like you're on social media. You can bet just like you were at the match races or somewhere else. You can make any bet you want to bet, and whether you can get a call or not is you can throw it out there that horse 9 will beat horse 10, and if you can get a caller, that bet's made on the exchange, and they take a portion of it. I guess Betfair, the gambling company, takes their portion of it, and I guess a portion of it goes to purses, blah blah blah. But anyhow, what's different about this form of gaming and the current systems we have is that you're actually betting. You can actually bet on horses to lose, because you're betting. I bet that the 5 horse beats the 4 or outruns the 4, or I'm going to bet the 9 horse runs last. You can make any bet you want to make, just like you're at the match races back in the Walter Merrick days of the 40s and 50s, at the beginning of the association. And we're going to have to be really careful if this form of gambling does take hold in the United States, because the ability for the jocks to not put forth best effort and give out insider information will really get them in trouble. It's already happening in Europe. Exchange wagering has been around, I'm not sure, but just a few years, Johnny? It's been around for several years in Europe, and it's just now starting to bleed over to the United States. And the Jocks Guild is not, but they've not embraced it yet, because they're looking out for the best interest of their membership, and that best interest is if those guys get caught not putting forth best effort and giving some kind of insider information, it's a lot easier to keep a horse from winning than it is to actually win on them. And those guys that are getting ruled off and different things, and the social media is going to be huge over exchange wagering. It could maybe be a great thing for horse racing in the States, because let's face it, it's a changing world with the internet, and it could draw some great exposure to horse racing, especially with the rush. And another thing that's exciting about the exchange wagering that is kind of shocking is you can actually bet mid-race. Like say the Kentucky Derby's halfway down the stretch, and if you can make a bet quick enough on the exchange and get it called that something coming from the back of the pack, I mean, you can make any bet you want to make. Let's see. I'm not near as well prepared with these long speeches like Al and Marty have had here. I've just made a few PowerPoints here. The one other thing that I wanted to talk about before I finish up is, just bring some awareness to the plight of the permanently disabled jockeys in the United States. We currently have an organization called the PDJF, which is an organization that supports these guys that have given their health permanently so we can run horse races. There's about 60 guys, and I believe probably about a third of them were hurt riding quarter horses. And that organization is run by a woman in Chicago named Nancy LaSala, and they give a small stipend to these people to supplement their income, to help pay their bills, I think it's like $1,000 a month, and the AQHA has been real supportive of some of these plights, and I just don't know if the common membership of the AQHA knows a whole lot about it. But in some of those fundraising circles, if you hear about it, you at least know about it. Permanently disabled, and it takes care of those guys what little bit it can that has given their life or health permanently so we can run horse races. Thank you all. Appreciate it.